What's going on, Sumolings? Welcome to another product walkthrough webinar. They are all entering and eager. Today we are going to be talking about Malcolm. This is a suite of tools that empowers your users to help themselves by transforming recurring tasks into forms and full customer journeys. We're going to dive into every part of Malcolm today, but before we do, I want to tell you just a few quick things. We would love to hear a little bit about your business and your use case, why you're interested in Malcolm over in the chat box on the right-hand side. And then if you have any questions about the deal or the tool, how to get set up, anything like that, you can leave those questions down below the video and we will circle back to them at the end of the walkthrough. And then the third thing is that there will be a replay of this. If you need to step out, say, okay, we forgive you. And yeah, you can watch this as many times as you need to. So Malcolm is available right now on AppSumo. It's starting at just $49. And today we have Tom here to talk to us about the product. How are you doing, Tom?
Hi, yes, good, thank you. Good to be here. How's everyone? I hope everyone is good.
I hope so too. Before we dive into the walkthrough, why don't you tell us a little bit about what people are loving about Malcolm, and then also how its two unique parts really come together in this tool.
Yeah, so I think first of all, it's been great to be on AppSumo. It's been great to get the feedback from everyone and sort of hear everyone's comments and questions, and it's been a really exciting week and a bit since we launched. Yeah, there is quite a bit to Malcolm. Malcolm's kind of quite a powerful product, despite it appearing sort of nice and fluffy. There's quite a lot of things you can do with it. And we have had some questions about, is it a knowledge base or is it a process tool, or, can I use it on my website, or does it replace my website? And usually the answer is, yeah, you can do, but it's kind of up to you. So there are quite a few different ways that you can work with Malcolm and try to make it work for you and your business. And one of the key things for us is flexibility, but that does mean that sometimes it can take a little while to work out how it all works and what are the best use cases and all that sort of stuff. So should I kick off? Should I just quickly do a little summary of kind of, what we're trying to achieve with Malcolm and how it works, and then
definitely I will go ahead. I will turn off my camera. I will turn off my mic. Sumolings, go ahead and leave us any questions in the Q&A box down below, and I'll leave you to it. Go ahead and walk us through.
Fantastic. Right, so I'm just going to share my screen. So hopefully you should be able to see that. Can you see that now?
It looks great.
Cool. Okay, so just very, very quickly before we dive in, not to do death by PowerPoint, but I just wanted to sort of, I guess, go into a bit more detail of what I mentioned there, in that there's an awful lot of stuff you can do with Malcolm. The key concept really with Malcolm is about digitizing your knowledge, all the stuff you've got in your head, and digitizing your process. So all the stuff that takes up your day, responding to emails, filling out forms, asking your customers to do stuff. We want you to use Malcolm to basically let your users self-service. So it's a self-service platform, really. And we're all about better user interaction. So we want to make the interactions that you have with your users more efficient, more fun, more scalable. And when we say users, so this is a question we get quite a lot on AppSumo. What do we mean by users? Well, users are essentially your audience. So for most businesses, it might be your customers, but you might be, a university, you might work in education. So in that case, your users might be your students. You might work in property and your users might be tenants. Essentially, your users can be anyone you want them to be. They could even be your staff or your suppliers, but they're essentially the people that you interact with every day. We want to help you interact with them better, basically. So again, not to bore everyone too much, but there's two sort of core parts to Malcolm. One part is a knowledge base, an FAQ system, and the other part is workflows, which is forms or user journeys. Now, it's probably worth saying straight away that you don't have to use both parts. We've got loads of customers who just purely use Malcolm as a knowledge base, as an FAQ system, and they're really happy with that. We also have lots of users who just want to build forms. Maybe they want to build a new supplier form, or they want to build a survey, and they just want to use the form part, the workflow part of Malcolm. That's cool as well. But we get really excited when you bring those two things together, because we really think that when you're servicing users, it tends to be about answering questions, that's FAQs, and taking people through process, and that tends to be workflows. And what we do find with a lot of our customers is over time, people might start using one feature and then slowly they start to use the other features, which is great. The other thing, just very briefly, at the heart of Malcolm is flexibility in how you implement it. So we wanted to cater for a lot of different types of customer. So on one hand, you might have the one-man band who has no or limited web design experience. And at the other end of the scale, you might have, a big company, got a big tech team, got a web team. And we want Malcolm to kind of work for both those different types of audiences or customers. So there's a lot of flexibility in the way you implement Malcolm. You can have a fully branded website, which we call a hosted hub, or you can use various little tools that we have, widgets, plugins, pop-ups, and you can pull Malcolm content into your existing website or your existing app or your existing product or service. And we kind of really want to make that flexible and let people have lots of different ways of doing that. We've got a comprehensive control panel. So once you have digitized your process, digitized your knowledge, you and members of your team can kind of see how things are going, and this is great, because this is when you really start to get the payback for doing the donkey work in putting those FAQs and building those workflows. You really start to see the benefits when you start to see the analytics and you start to see, wow, okay, people, are coming to Malcolm and they're using Malcolm at 3 in the morning. That's great. I've come into work and somebody's, already filled out an appointment request form. That sort of stuff's fantastic. You can see what people are searching for, and you can also enable a feature where your users can actually say this content's great, or maybe this content's not so great, and you can learn how to make things better. So that's a big part of it as well. So we're going to dive in. As I say, there's a lot you can do with Malcolm. It sometimes can be complicated at first. You need to get your head around it. So what I thought I'd do for this demo is come up with an example use case. So let's say you're a self-employed mortgage broker. So you work from home, you've got a client base, you've got a brand, we're calling you home lender here, but chances are, you're drowning in emails and phone calls, and potentially a lot of those people, a lot of your customers might be, asking you the same thing. Can I remortgage? It's coronavirus, can I have a mortgage holiday? What is a half and half mortgage? All this sort of stuff. So we're gonna look at how Malcolm can help with that. And chances are also that you have quite a lot of process stuff to do. You probably need to do ID checks on people. You might need to collect a lot of information if somebody's remortgaging. All that sort of stuff that takes up a huge amount of time, Malcolm can help with. So remember that use case, you're a self-employed mortgage broker. Right, so with that, I will get rid of PowerPoint, you'll be glad to hear, and we shall dive into this, which is My Malcolm. So My Malcolm is the control panel part of Malcolm. So this is what you, as the business owner or the person at your organization in charge of Malcolm would see. This is not what your users see, this is what you see. So you log in, this is the dashboard. There's a lot of stuff here. I'm not gonna sort of go into too much detail on everything. What we're gonna do is we're gonna go and look at the FAQ section. So what I did just before we started this Zoom is in our imaginary case of a mortgage broker, I thought of some of the questions that customers might ask. So, what type of mortgages do you offer? So, and a few other questions. So this is how you would create an FAQ. So this is the FAQ compose screen. And we can say, this is the question, this is a brief summary of the answer, and then this is the full answer. This is where you put in all your information. Now, what this looks like to your user is this. So this is what they would see. They would see a page with that information, and they can read it and they can sort of vote on it and they can email it themselves and so on. Over here, you see it like this. This is Markdown that we use, and if you're not used to Markdown, it takes a little while to pick up, but it's a really powerful way of editing, and you can do things like this, which is side-by-side editing, which is really nice. So you create your FAQ content, and then you can start to configure it. So you can choose the URL that your FAQ will live at. You can do all the things that you'd expect to be able to do in a modern web publishing system. You can add tags. You can say who the author is. You can decide whether you want the date that you last updated it to be displayed. You can say whether you want your customers to feedback on it, all that sort of stuff. Next, you can put it into categories. An FAQ can live in one or more categories. It's a good way of organizing content. Next, you can decide, do you want search engines to see this content? Do you actually want to put it behind a password? Do you want it maybe to only be accessible if you send a URL to somebody? You can decide all of that, lots of associated stuff. about whether it appears in listings and all that sort of stuff. And finally, you can publish it, and you can have a draft. You can publish it so the world can see it, and you can do all sorts of sort of clever stuff as well. Like you might decide that you want to publish it, but not until next week. You might want to have different versions of content. You might even want to, if you know, if you need to check it with somebody, you might want to set up a whole approval process. Huge amount of stuff. You can do that, but it's a pretty comprehensive FAQ system, and once you've set up your FAQs, you can see here that you can manage different ones. You can see feedback that comes in. You can see general activity on your team. You can see the analytics. You can see feedback, searches, views, all sort of stuff that you'd expect to do. So that's the FAQ part of Malcolm. Workflows. Now, workflows is one of those terms that means different things to different people. It came up on the AppSumo thing. It's quite interesting. We're a software company. We've done a lot of software projects, and even in that world, workflows kind of mean different things to different people. But essentially, it's completing the task, right? A repetitive task, a digital version of that. So that's how we define workflows. You may find it easier to think of them as forms or user journeys. So let's think of something a mortgage broker might do. They might need to build a form to collect a customer's proof of ID. So again, just before this Zoom call, I built a very simple form. This is what it looks like to the end user. You can see it's got some rudimentary information, name, email address, phone number, etc. And then it asks you to choose the type of ID you're uploading, and the person can drag a file in there. So very, very basic form. You can do much more complicated forms, but this is quite a good example of a form. Now, what that looks like in My Malcolm is this. So this is the My Malcolm form builder, and it's a drag and drop builder where you can basically drag elements that you want on your form and add them. So you can see here, we've asked for somebody's name. Let's say maybe you wanted to not say name, you wanted to say your name. You can click on that element, you can change it. You can do all sorts of things like descriptions, default values, placeholder messages, tooltips, all that sort of stuff. You can decide, do I want it to be mandatory or not? You can do things like correct or change the data that's put in. Maybe you want to make sure that all your names have a capital letter at the start of each word. You can do that. You can specify length of characters, all that sort of stuff. So a huge amount of configurability if you need that. If you don't need that, chances are, you can just drop things in. And you can see up here, there's all various different elements you can drag in. And you literally just say, okay, you choose the element you want, you just drag it in, and then you click to edit it. And again, there's all sorts of options, all sorts of things that you can do. At any point, you can hit preview, and that will show you what it looks like. You see there the multi-choice answer that I dropped in, and you can move stuff around. You can also split stuff over pages. You can do things like conditional routing, which means that if you have a form with certain sections that you only want to display when people have answered questions a certain way, you can do all of that. There's a huge amount of things you can do here. Again, it's probably beyond the scope of this Zoom call to go through all of that. But there's lots of elements that you can drag onto the form to make your form look nice. And you can do a custom, you can see here I've done a custom thank you message. So you build your form, you then start to configure it. So again, a bit like FAQs, you can choose a friendly URL, but you can also do some quite nice stuff, like maybe you actually want to redirect to a custom thank you page. You can do that. Maybe when they've actually been through that, you want to send them to another URL, you can do that. You can decide whether you want your users to feed back or not on a form. You can also make a form savable. So if you've got a particularly long form, or maybe, in our mortgage broker example, you've asked for some information and the person filling out the form has gone, actually, I don't have that information to hand. If you have this feature turned on, they can save the form, they can come back to it. They don't, have to lose all the stuff that they've inputted, which is great. You can do lots of stuff about what the form looks like, and we'll come back to that in a bit. And you can add email recipients. So great, somebody fills out a form, and because you're the instance admin, you'll get an email, but maybe you want to email somebody else as well. So you can put those person's details in here. Maybe you're, as a mortgage broker, you've got some sort of deal where there's certain types of mortgages you don't actually deal with, but you've got a colleague who does, or an affiliation with somebody who will do that. You can do really smart things, like if somebody selected a type of mortgage that they're interested in on a form, you can send their details, assuming you have their consent, of course, to your colleague, and Malcolm will automatically pass that information over to you. And you can have multiple rules for multiple different things. You can also do integration. So once somebody's filled in your form, you can start to do some really clever stuff with the data that they've submitted. So maybe you want to add them to your mailing list in MailChimp. You can do that. Maybe the files that they've added to the form, their ID, you want to add to your Dropbox account. You can do that. All sorts of things. Now, at the moment, we only have 5 direct integrations, and we use Zapier for all the other integrations. We're very aware that Simulings are after a lot of direct integrations. We're very keen to do some as well. So in the coming months, we will be adding lots and lots of direct integrations, and we'll also be adding other integration platforms like Zapier. And a lot of you have already emailed in saying which ones you'd like to see. So if you're watching this and you think, wow, I really want this to integrate with this particular app, do email us, support@malcolm.app. And we'd love to have your feedback, and we'll prioritize those sorts of things. You can also do webhooks, and you can also, a bit like FAQs, decide, is something visible? Is it not? Is it behind a password? Do I want Google to see it? All that sort of stuff. And you can do publishing stuff. Again, there's actually a lot more in that section. There's lots of version control stuff, schedule publishing approvals. Won't go into it on this tool because you will be dying of boredom. But if you play around, there's a lot of cool stuff that you can do in that world. Now, as we've done this, you've seen me share examples of what an FAQ looks like and what a workflow looks like. But you might remember I was talking about flexibility in implementation, and this is something that we're very passionate about here at Malcolm HQ. So, in workflows, I built, again, just before the Zoom call, a very simple contact me form. Here it is. Confused about mortgages, got questions, fill in this form, right? And it's a nice looking form. It's on a web page, great. But wouldn't it be cool if you already had a website and you actually could have this pop up over your website when a new customer comes to your site? We thought it was cool, and it's really easy to do in Malcolm. And again, conceptually, this is one of the things we're really keen on. You put your content into Malcolm, you put your knowledge, you put your process into Malcolm, and we want to give you lots and lots of different ways to surface that knowledge, to put that process in front of your users. So the way you do that is you go into the share section of Malcolm, and you can do something called an embed. We have different types of embeds. We have ways that you can put Malcolm content directly into your web page. We have ways that you can float a modal or overlay over the center of your web page. What I'm going to show you here is a widget, which is kind of a little bit actually like this need help thing down here at the bottom. This is the Malcolm widget. And also our open a support ticket here, that is also a Malcolm widget. So we're going to quickly create one of those. We're going to call it contact me demo. We're going to start configuring it. Here's where you choose what you actually want to be in that widget. So we can choose a single workflow. We can choose author listings, categories, FAQs, search results, tag listings. You can even do really cool stuff like feed a search through to Malcolm based on the meta information in your web page. There's some really cool stuff you can do. But for the purposes of this, we'll do something very simple. We'll say, I want to put a single workflow in this widget, and the workflow that I want to use is contact me. So it's that contact form. We're then going to decide what we want this to look like. So on the right here, you've got like a little mini demo of what the widget might look like. And maybe need help isn't necessarily the right text here. Maybe it's contact me. So we can put in here, say contact me. So this is a pre-expand thing people see before they click on it. And when they do expand it, we can do a heading such as request a callback, let's say, something like that. You can then do all sorts of stuff, change the button size, change the button position on your screen, change the button style. You can also decide whether you want the search box there, because it's a single workflow. I don't think we need that. And you can also turn the footer off. So if you don't want the Malcolm branding, no problem, turn it off. You can do all that sort of stuff. You can do really clever stuff like URL rules. So if you put the tag on your web page, you can put it on every page of your site, but actually configure it in Malcolm to only show on certain pages. You can do that here. You can also do some quite cool stuff like only show it at certain times, and also decide whether you want to share it on desktop or not. And again, you can sort of publish it or not publish it. So what does this look like? We can do the preview here. This is a dummy page that Malcolm has created. So you can kind of ignore the content of this page, but down here you'll see it's got contact me. And when you click it, you can see that the form that was a web page form has now been surfaced in a little widget type thing here, and you can float this over your website, and it's a really cool and neat way of repurposing Malcolm content. And you can do that in lots of different ways, and all the information that's submitted still comes through to your Malcolm dashboard, and you can still do all the things you can do with regular web page workflows, route them into third parties, all that sort of stuff. So pretty cool, right? We think so far this is really cool. Flexibility of implementation is also, we think, about looking great. So one of the things with Malcolm is that we really want you to be able to surface your brand. We want you to be able to customize Malcolm in all different types of ways, and we give extensive options to do that in our brand section. So in this dummy use case, home lender, we've created a look and feel. And I'm now going to show you our hosted hub. So if I click this here, this is what we call a hosted hub. Now, you don't have to use this. You might not want to use this. You might be quite happy to bring Malcolm content into your existing website, no problem. But you might not have a website. If you're literally a one-man band, a one-person band working at home, you might never have got around to doing a website. And actually, you might want to use Malcolm to build a client support portal. You can do that. And actually, if you're a self-employed mortgage broker, it's a great point of differentiation. It's really cool to say to your clients, hey, you sign up with me, we've got a client support portal. You can put it behind a password, so only they can get to it. You can set up a different password for each of your clients. And it's a real value add. It means that actually you look really slick. You can compete with the big companies, and you can brand it up. So here we have the hosted hub. This has the Malcolm content that we've been talking about. So you've got your FAQs here. We can click around. We can look at other FAQs, related content. We can rate content. We can email content to ourselves if we want to. We can search for stuff, and you'll have your auto-complete things, all this sort of stuff. We can fill in forms. We can browse by category. It's a really comprehensive little website, and it's fully responsive. You can view it on mobile, all that sort of stuff. So that's all managed within My Malcolm from the brand section. And if we go in here and edit it, we can start to see a lot of the stuff that you can change. So these are the colors that you can change. You can change the font. You might want to change the fav icon. You might want to change the thing that gets spat out to Facebook and Twitter if someone shares a page. You can do all of that. You can change the icons for FAQs. You can upload your own icons. The header. So here it says client support portal. That might not actually be the right terminology for your business. No problem. Just call that whatever you want to call it. Call it client home perhaps. And you can see as I change this, it's changing in real time on our little preview. Maybe you don't want the preamble text, you can turn that off. Maybe you don't want the search box, you can turn that off. Maybe having have a question asked us here isn't the right terminology, you can change it. Maybe having the search button called search isn't right, you can change it. So, philosophically, we want you to be able to change everything. Now, one of the requests that come in via AppSumo is you guys love being able to change stuff, but a lot of you want to be able to change everything in the front end, including all the system labels. So the text that's spat out automatically by the system, such as, rate this content. And we hear you. You can change some of that now. You can't change all of it. And those of you who don't have English as your main language, you're desperate to be able to change that because you want to be able to localize it into a different language. So that's coming very soon. That's currently looking to be done in June. And that will be another area that's added to this theme management, where you can basically change everything that your users will see on Malcolm. You can do it from here. Again, I'm conscious of time. I'm conscious of sort of boring all of you sort of going too micro into certain details. But this section is very comprehensive. You can have things called featured boxes, which are these things, which are these little sort of panels at the top. You can have things called promos, which are these things at the bottom. And you can do several rows of those if you want. They can be really useful to highlight categories or highlight FAQs or highlight forms. Here I'm highlighting submit your proof of ID information. They give a lot of flexibility. You can choose whether you want to have things like most popular, most helpful, and you can choose whether you want excerpts for those. Framers, as I mentioned, you can manage here. You can manage the footer, you can turn the Malcolm badge off, you can put your copyright information there. You can change some of the terminology. As mentioned, more terminology is coming, but you can do all that sort of stuff. You can change how search results are displayed. You can decide whether you want workflows to be returned in search results or just FAQs, etc., etc. Error page, SEO, all sorts of stuff. You can do it in this section, and you can also manage multiple themes, which is quite cool. So you can clone a theme. You know, so if you're going to tweak your theme for Christmas, for example, or you know, for some other reason, maybe you've got a big promotion or sale coming on, you can prep that in advance and then switch over on a certain date, which is really cool. So an awful lot you can do there. You can upload your media. We offer half a gig of storage initially. This will show up on AppSumo quite a lot. If you need more storage, it's not a problem. Just send us an email and we can allocate that for you. But you can also embed content at the moment from YouTube and Vimeo. Another really popular request so far with AppSumo has been to support other embeds, and we've got a long list of those. So a bit like integrations, we'll be doing these in June. If you have particular embeds that you want to see, that you want us to allow in Malcolm, send us a ticket, send us an email, open a ticket, and we'll add those to the list. We kind of restrict embeds to a safe list just to make sure that actually when you are rendering content out into other formats, into embeds, into widgets, things still look great, things aren't going to break. That's the reason why we do that. Again, I'm conscious of time, but there's a lot of other things you can do in Malcolm. You can obviously add your custom domain. You can add your tracking tags. If you guys use Digital Analytics, do a tag manager, you can put it in here. You can do all sorts of things with visibility. So I mentioned in passing password protection. You can password protect all your content or some of your content, and you can also do really neat things where you password protect most of your content, but then, for example, you might want to have a workflow that lets people sign up and request access. And what you can do with that is you can make that one workflow not have a password, and then you can put it on your hosted hub homepage, and then people can request access, and that's really neat. So all this sort of stuff, and you can do approvals, that sort of thing. So suddenly, if you're this mortgage broker working from home, pretty pushed for time, you suddenly, you know, with a few hours effort, you've suddenly digitized a lot of your stuff. You've suddenly got FAQs that clients and potential clients can access 24/7. When people send you email inquiries, you can say, hey, great question, but actually here's an FAQ that answers that question. If somebody says to you, oh, I'm remortgaging, what are the things that I need? What documentation will I need? You can send them an FAQ with all that information in. And if you enable the feedback feature, you know, you'll start to get people, clients feeding back and giving comments saying, hey, that was a great FAQ, but actually you're missing this information. And again, with AppSumo, this has been fantastic. We've been making our own FAQs better based on the feedback that people are giving us. So that's really exciting. So you start using your at-home mortgage broker, you start using Malcolm, and guess what? Suddenly you've got a whole load more clients, you're working more efficiently, you've digitized a lot of your common tasks. You know, when people fill out forms, you're automatically sending those forms on to other people. You know, the people you're working with are going, this is fantastic. Like, you know, I'm getting all this information from you in real time. You're going, this is pretty cool. And this, yeah, so hopefully you start to expand and you can add other people. You can hire some people. You might want to work with a colleague. And again, great thing about Malcolm, you can add other team members. So you can invite team members and you can see what they do on Malcolm, but you can also really granularly give them just the privileges that you want to give them. So for example, maybe you want someone to help you out with the admin, but you don't want them to actually see submitted data from your clients. You can configure that. Maybe you want to allow somebody to edit FAQs, but actually not publish them until you've configured it. You can do all that sort of stuff. And as mentioned right at the start, you get all these great FAQs. So you can start to see what are people searching for. So you get these great analytics. So you start to see what are people searching for, what's my highest rated FAQs, you know, what's the feedback been today, all that sort of stuff. And as your FAQ library grows, you can do lots of things to manage it. You can choose the columns, you can add labels, you can filter it, all that sort of stuff. So there's a big comprehensive set of management tools. So as you can tell, I could probably go on all day talking about this, but hopefully that's a reasonably decent overview of Malcolm, what you can do in Malcolm. and what the control panel of My Malcolm looks like, how you can create FAQs, workflows, brand them up, surface them in different ways. And just to reiterate the point from the start, you don't have to use both. For some people, they just love the FAQ functionality. For others, they just love the workflow functionality. But we really think that the magic happens when you use both parts together.
Well, thank you so much for going through all of that. You did great on time.
Cool. Excellent.
Yeah, so you and I both predicted that this question was going to come. I'm hitting you with the instances question.
Ah.
So let me go ahead and tell you what some of the Sumolings have been asking, so you can go ahead and tailor it accordingly. One question was just, can you go more in depth? That was early on. Then, can you explain what an instance is? If I'm one company, do I need more than one? What are the instances in which you need 2 instances?
Okay, so this question come up quite a lot, and believe me, internally at Malcolm HQ, we've kind of racked our brains to think of a better word than instance. It's a sort of fairly techie word, but in simple terms, an instance is a complete version of Malcolm. So if you are a mortgage broker and you are at home and you want to use Malcolm with your customers, you just need one version of Malcolm. As you've seen, you can create FAQs, you can create workflows, you can brand it all up, you can add your team members, and that should be fine. If you want to use Malcolm with a different set of users, that's when we say, actually, you need another instance, because essentially you love Malcolm, it's working for you, but you probably, for example, if you wanted to use Malcolm with your staff or maybe with your suppliers, the content's probably going to be slightly different. It's probably going to be different content, different workflows. The branding might be slightly different, and you might want to have different users working on that. So that's when you have 2 instances. So essentially, it's a version of Malcolm. So here, I'm on this demo instance. And you can see here, I'm actually on all these other instances. So these are all different sorts of instances that I'm on, that I can switch between. And they've got different users, different content. They're for totally different things. And that's kind of the idea of instances, that you can switch between, and they're totally separate workspaces. Now, if you're an agency, for example, and you want to use Malcolm with clients, you might want to have lots of different instances for different clients, because chances are, client 1 is going to have different information that you want to share with them to client 2. And that's essentially what an instance is. It's a fully featured version of Malcolm. It has all the things that you'd expect. But sometimes people love Malcolm so much they actually want to use it with quite a few different sets of users or in quite a few different ways. And that's when you would have more than one instance. Does that make sense? I don't know if hopefully that's a bit clearer.
I think that it does make sense. So a couple other Sumolings have tried to define it as well. So is an instance based on a product or a service, or is it like different workspaces?
It kind of goes, so what I was saying at the start is Malcolm can be a bit confusing because there's so many things that you can do with it. And there's a little bit of self-definition. So going back to those original slides, I'm sorry, I know everyone fears PowerPoint, but what's Malcolm about? It's about digitizing your knowledge and digitizing your process, and doing that with a bunch of users. So it kind of all depends how you want to use it. It basically, if let's say you're a sort of a company that goes out and services things. Let's say you're a heating engineer. The information, the FAQs that you have with your customers and the process that you have with your customers is probably going to be a little bit different from the information that you want to share with your service engineers. So your service engineers, you might want to share information about how you service boilers, and you might want to do job sheets, and you might want to have information that you share with your service engineers that's just really for internal users of your company. So in that example, 2 instances of Malcolm could make sense. You have the version that you share with your customers, and that has information that is customer facing and workflows that are customer facing. And then you might decide, we also want to use Malcolm internally, but our audience for the internal use is our servicing engineers. So when they're out on the road and they want to know how to service a particular boiler, They can look up our knowledge base and they can see things that are maybe a bit too in depth for our regular customers, but the audience of service engineers, they'll understand that. And maybe you want to do things like job sheets and parts order forms that and you might want to include quite technical things on those workflows that the engineers will understand and language that they will understand, but again wouldn't necessarily be the same on the customer facing one. You could potentially put all of those things on the same instance and hide some of that content so your customers can't see it, but it tends to be a little bit messy and your analytics are kind of get skewed and things like that. So it's kind of, to answer the question, it's kind of down to how you want to implement things. It's really flexible. It's not about hard limits. On the AppSumo deal, you've got unlimited FAQs, unlimited workflows, unlimited team members. It's more about what makes sense to segment in your particular business or organization. And if you're a freelancer, for example, you might work across 3 or 4 totally different companies. We have customers who use Malcolm and they're freelancers and they have different instances for totally different businesses that they work with on different days of the week. But they use Malcolm as a way of communicating how they work to their customers. And they've got instances that are branded up to their particular clients that kind of reflect the exact way they work with those different clients. But they, as a sort of My Malcolm user, can switch between those really quickly and see what's going on in those instances.
Wonderful, thank you. To keep on the same wavelength here, do I have to designate my instances right away, or can I rename them later? For example, I could use an instance on my website and another one for my membership site. If I buy a third one, do I have to decide now how I want to use it?
Not at all. No, you can just literally redeem the code and set it up and leave it there, and yeah, just come back to it whenever you want to use it. There's you can change the name of your instance. You can change the URL. You can even if you wanted to, you could add somebody else to your instance and then make them the owner and then remove yourself from the instance. So you could, so for example, if you're an agency, and you ultimately wanted to sort of hand Malcolm over to your client, you could do that. So no, you don't have to decide. It's super flexible. You can just you can redeem the code and leave the instance sitting there. They won't expire, and you can change everything whenever you're ready to use it for whatever you want to use it for.
All right. We're going to knock out some use case based questions right now. So the first one is, how could I get the most out of Malcolm if I wanted to use it as a survey tool during an election campaign?
Oh, wow. Well, you could obviously build a survey. So I'm assuming that you know the questions that you want to ask. So yeah, you could build a survey in Malcolm workflows. You could cut that lots of different ways. You could build one sort of uber big survey, or you could build lots of little surveys that maybe ask different things. From the survey stuff that I've done, the challenge is always getting people to fill in surveys, right? You kind of, a lot of people start and then they drop off. By the way, one of the great things with Malcolm is if somebody starts doing a workflow and they do drop off, you can track that. You can see the data they did submitted, that they have submitted. But yeah, you can build surveys and you can surface them in lots of different ways. So yeah, you can float those over existing websites. You can embed them into different things. You can kind of see what works with the analytics. There's lots of different flexible ways that you can do things. You can also do without again getting too techy. There's a really neat feature in workflows which are called hidden fields. So what you can do is you can put a form. You can build a workflow, and maybe one of the fields is user ID. But you can hide that field, and then you can set that field via the URL you use to link to the workflow. So again, if you're doing surveys with a large lot of users and you want to just send them a unique URL and not ask them who they are, you can do it that way. You can also do it programmatically if you guys are into that. Does that answer the question? Sorry, it's slightly long-winded. A lot of these answers, what we found with AppSumo and in general, is the answers often, it depends. You can do that. If you could do it this way, you could do it that way. It is as I say, it's a more flexible and complicated product than it may first appear. But that flexibility is really at the heart of it. We really want to let people use it in different ways and not trying to be constrained by having to do it a particular way.
For sure. So yeah, going with use cases, can you do can a survey form do tallying like in a contest?
No, but it's on our backlog.
Cool.
And there's a sneak peek, actually. Have I got it? A few people have been asking for this. There's this is a sort of this is an exclusive here. This is so this was pre AppSumo. This was some of the features that we had planned, and yeah, things like calculator scoring of answers and stuff like that is in there over here. Payments is in there. Various things, stock management, obviously more third-party integrations, ability to redeem codes. So this is all stuff that's kind of planned, being designed, in progress, being tested. It depends what stage it's at. But this is all stuff that's definitely happening this year. And obviously, as you know, in the last week we've had tons of great suggestions. I think the number one thing at the moment is the ability to totally be able to customize every bit of language on the front end. So that's kind of a number one. I think hotly followed by more integrations, hotly followed by more embed types. So we support YouTube and Vimeo, but you know, there's all sorts of things that, you know, Google Slides, you know, Loom videos, all sorts of stuff people want to have added. So we've got a whole load of things to work through. But yes, so yes, the only sort of proviso I'd say is ultimately Malcolm is a generalist tool. So we always try and be honest as well. Like if you're just doing surveys, if you're just doing quizzes, you know, we will put a lot of functionality into Malcolm, but the really honest answer is, you know, if you're just doing that, you may ultimately be better off with a dedicated tool for that. But with Malcolm, we want to have flexibility where, you know, you can do lots of things across the various touch points of your business. But yeah, we don't, the balance is always trying to provide a wide range of functionality that kind of makes sense to most businesses without going too micro on one sort of micro use case.
Right. Can Malcolm be used to onboard a client? Can the webhooks connect to social media accounts to onboard a social media client?
So can Malcolm be used to webboard a client? Absolutely, and it's a great use case. Can webhooks be used to connect to social media accounts? No, not as they are currently implemented, but integrations can. So at the moment, you need to go via Zapier. So you basically build your workflow, you connect your workflow to Zapier, and then in Zapier, you do all those things that you want to do with your social media accounts. As mentioned, we are adding lots more integrations later in the year. If there are particular things that you want added, obviously we're going to know that the main social networks are going to be popular. But if, you know, email us, get in touch with us, let us know the particular things that you would like to be able to do, and we can add that. The issue with the webhooks is often the format that our webhooks work in are not necessarily the format that third-party services are expecting. So the webhook functionality tends to be better with your internal system. So if you're, you know, an organization that you've got some sort of internal system, and you maybe want to build a front end in Malcolm, and then when someone fills out a form or something like that, you want to let your back end system know, that tends to be the better way to use webhooks. But yeah, there's kind of, the webhook functionality will get extended as we go through Malcolm, but integrations is probably the way to do what we've described. But onboarding, great use case, and it also onboarding staff as well. You know, maybe, you know, it can be onboarding clients, onboarding staff, collecting details, getting them to upload things like maybe, you know, a staff photo, or if you've got clients and they want to upload content and things like that, and then you want to put it into Dropbox, you want to subscribe them to mailing lists, all that sort of stuff. Yeah, great use case for Malcolm.
Wonderful. Thank you. I just want to let all of the latecomers know that, one, there will be a replay of this available. And also, if you have any questions, you can go ahead and submit those in the Q&A box. That's where I'm getting all of these from. This next question, I like that both of the Sumo links phrased it. Did I see that? So the first one is, did I see that Malcolm could be used as a way for people to submit a help ticket for support? Yes.
So, so we ourselves use Malcolm for this little thing on the right-hand side, which hopefully you can see. So if you so for example, if you within my Malcolm here, or if you go to our website, you'll see on the right-hand side, open a support ticket. And this is a workflow that we've built, and we've surfaced it as a widget. So if you actually go to our own help center, which I'll do here now live, this is a hosted hub. And you can see here that we're saying there's a feature header, and this is a workflow, open a support ticket. The exact same workflow is surfaced via the little widget on the side. So this here is that workflow being served through a widget. And yes, what you do is you fill it out, and then we've got a Zendesk integration. That's one of the direct integrations. So if you guys fill this out, this is stored in Malcolm, but it also puts it straight away into Zendesk and creates a ticket. At the moment, we only support Zendesk directly, but we will be adding other integrations, and you can also bounce it into Zapier and route it into other ticketing software that way as well. And you can also do conditional routing. So we've got a property client, for example, who uses it to, they built a workflow for all their tenants, and depending on the type of inquiry, they route it in different ways. So for example, if it's something that their office deals with, it actually goes into Zendesk. If it's something that their handyman deals with, it will send an email to the handyman. If it's something that their accounts team need to deal with, it will send an email to the accounts team. If it's a tenant reporting like a faulty light, and they've uploaded a photo or something like that, it will put it into Dropbox and it will email their handyman and stuff like that. So yes, you can do it, absolutely. And there's lots of different things you can do with that functionality.
Awesome. The next one is, did I see that clients can be billed from this site?
They can't be billed. We are going to add a payment functionality to workflows where you'll be able to take payments for things. But yeah, I don't know if there's any more detail of what exactly they're referring to by being billed. But yeah, it's not a billing platform. We don't, for example, we wouldn't do things like sending out. We wouldn't automatically do things like sending out, request to pay. Although when we add payment into workflow, you would potentially be able to do something like that, because you'd be able to send out a workflow that requests payment using the set value in URL functionality to ask for a certain amount, and then you would integrate your payment service provider, and then you get paid that way. So it's a kind of, but it's not. Yeah, it depends exactly what you mean, but it's not. I wouldn't describe it as a billing platform.
Cool. Does clarification? Does a person need Zendesk in order to handle support tickets within Malcolm?
With Zendesk, yeah. So we don't offer within Malcolm. We don't handle support tickets. We can collect the information and then we pass it on via integrations. At the moment, the only direct integration we have is Zendesk, but we also integrate with Zapier. And in case you're not familiar with Zapier, it's kind of like what we would call an integration platform. So you connect Malcolm to Zapier, and then Zapier itself connects, to thousands of other different apps. And it's convenient. It's not ideal. We would much prefer that we had 1,500 direct integrations ourselves, and hopefully we will do one day. But it is a good way of, it does work, and it is a good way of doing that. So if you use other ticketing software that isn't Zendesk, go and look on Zapier. Chances are it'll be on there, and you'll be able to connect your Malcolm workflow to your ticketing software that way.
Awesome, awesome. If I have 100 coaches and I want them to be able to answer a question from a student, but no other students to answer the question, do I make all 100 coaches part of my team?
I'm not sure I understand that one. So say that one to me again, if that's right.
I know it feels a little bit like a math problem. If I have 100 coaches and I want them to be able to answer a question from a student, but for no other students to answer the question, do all 100 coaches part of my team?
I'm still a bit confused by that one. You could, for example, do something like you could build a workflow with a question, and then so the student asks you a question, you turn that question into a workflow, and then you send that workflow to your 100 coaches, and they all submit their answer. You should use it like that, and you yourself within My Malcolm would see the 100 different responses. If you wanted to then sort of share all that data back with the other coaches, what I would probably do is do an integration on the workflow. So maybe put all their answers into Google Sheets or something like that, or put it into something that is a better place to manipulate that data and review that data. It doesn't sound to me like it's the sort of thing that Malcolm would kind of be great at natively. so I would punt it into something else that would do a better job.
Sure. How many team members can somebody have? Is it unlimited?
It's unlimited. Yeah, on the AppSumo deal, it's unlimited. So yeah, not yourself out. Go for it.
Wonderful. All right. So we're going to go back just a little bit to instances because we have a couple of people that would like to know how many they should have. So if I had a kitchen remodeling company, I would need 3 instances, one for leads, one for client jobs, and one for contractors and supplies. Is that correct?
Yeah, that sounds logical. If you wanted to kind of keep things separate between those different types of users, so that would sound sensible. Yes.
Cool. All right. How about this? Let's see if this is sensible. I like that as a judgment call. So say I want an instance to include front end prospect intake forms, onboarding, and execution phases of a project. Can it also include outsourcers supply chain management? Or should I use 2 instances? One for outsourcers and one for.
So again, you can probably guess my answer. It kind of depends. It depends how you implement. So if, for example, so one thing you could do, you just build a lot of forms for different things. You could not use the hosted hub. You can even turn off the hosted hub so no one can see it. And if you just want to build lots of forms and you're just emailing those forms to people, or you're surfacing those forms in embeds, you could make lots of different embeds. You could send lots of different emails, and you could actually run all those things off one instance, assuming that your company branding is the same for those different user types. When it probably makes sense to have 2 different instances is if you're using more of the functionality. So if you're actually saying, right, my supply chain, I've got a load of knowledge, a load of FAQs that I want to create for them, and I've got some very supply chain specific forms, and actually I want them to be able to search that information, and I don't want, when the supply chain people search for it, I don't want them to see information that the other audience sees. Then 2 instances would make more sense in that case, if you're kind of keeping those 2 things separate. And then you could potentially have 2 different hosted hubs for those 2 different audiences. But yeah, it kind of depends. It's all about how you guys want to implement it. I mean, it's a little bit like websites, right? So some companies will have just one website for everyone, and then some companies will have actually what they call their marketing website for their clients, but they might have a recruitment website, and they might have an intranet, right? They might have an internal website for their staff, and they might have an extranet with their suppliers or their partners or whatever. So and all of those are valid choices. It's all kind of down to you, really. And yeah, you can use Malcolm in any of those ways.
Wonderful, wonderful. Will new features be included in the AppSumo plan automatically?
Yeah, absolutely, 100%.
Cool. Oh, wait. I want to have an ask answer forum. Can I use Malcolm?
Not really. So that is something that is on our backlog, but it's kind of it's quite a long way down it. The whole sort of UGC sort of user generated content, stuff. Yeah, we're interested in. But again, how we implement that, when you think about, there's some quite good products out there that already do that. So, do we integrate with them? Do we add that on? Do we not? We're in the early stages of thinking about that. So the answer is not at the moment. I think it's less likely that will be something that you see soon. I think there's great products that already do that. So yeah, I don't think that's a sort of core thing of Malcolm at the moment.
Cool. All right, client support portal. What is the URL for that? Is it per client? Is it per my agency domain /URL?
So it's per instance, in terms of you can have one URL per instance, assuming you're talking about our hosted hub. And yeah, initially, if you come in and sign up for Malcolm, you can create a URL on one of our domains, which are malcolm.app or malcolm.support. But actually, you probably want to put it on your own domain. So you can do that here. So you can have whatever subdomain you want. So you have customers.domain.com or whatever it is. And think you mentioned / or something in your question. It is always a subdomain. If you want to actually have it at /, it's probably better that you use embeds or something like that. You can sort of do it, but it's quite complicated to do it. So the way it normally works is you just have a subdomain, and that's where your Malcolm content comes from.
Awesome. Is there API access on the Team Plus plan?
There's integrations and there's webhooks. And integrations are kind of probably what most people kind of mean by API access.
Mm-hmm.
A few people have asked this, that the whole, and this, again, without going off on a tangent, the whole of Malcolm is actually built on APIs. So, even my Malcolm, it's a JavaScript application that's consuming and publishing to our own APIs. So when we talk about enterprise API, you can kind of, it's very, very bespoke, and it's normally set up for clients on a particular basis, and it's normally quite expensive. There's normally quite a lot of licensing involved. We do have some sort of fairly big chunky clients using parts of Malcolm platform. So we do want to definitely open up more parts of Malcolm for people to be able to do stuff. There is further down the line some plans for a sort of developer community and a marketplace style thing. What I would say is that if there's something you particularly want to do with Malcolm, email us, open a ticket, talk to us, and we can tell you whether it's possible or whether it's not. But a few people have sort of said, oh, I see enterprise API on your website. Can I have that? And it's, as I say, it's what we actually call our enterprise API is kind of this monster where you can, put stuff into Malcolm and create stuff, and it can do version control and all that sort of stuff. And that's probably not what most people want. And it isn't, unfortunately, available under any of the sort of software as a service plans at the moment. It does exist, but it's quite bespoke in the way that it's set up. But we will be adding more sort of ability to programmatically interface with Malcolm as we go through the next sort of months and hopefully years.
Wonderful. We have a couple of questions about chat and customer support. Can I have live customer support on my site via Malcolm, and could Malcolm be used as or with a chatbot?
So you can if you use customer chat, if you use like live person or something like that, you can put those tags, those JavaScript tags into Malcolm. So if you're using our hosted hub and you want to surface your chat, you can put the tags here, any other JavaScript snippets, or if you use Google Tag Manager, you can also surface them via that. We don't offer chat ourselves, but bot chat is something that we have actually prototyped, and we might have at some point, but it's not in the backlog at the moment. But the way Malcolm's built is that you can surface your knowledge and your process in lots of different ways. At the moment, it's website and it's embed, but kind of some of the ideas we've got that are quite exciting are kind of surfacing that in lots of different ways. But yeah, so but in the short term, again, there's a lot of great chat products out there. A couple of people have emailed me and they've been doing things like just pointing various chatbot products at the sitemap.xml that the hosted hub spits out, and kind of bringing Malcolm content into those bots that way, which people are really welcome to try, and we're really interested in seeing the results of. So you might be able to do things like that. But yeah, I don't know if you're saying will we kind of have a native bot chat. It is something we thought about. It is something we prototype, but it's not in the short term sort of feature list at the moment.
Awesome. So I know this is a pretty frequently asked question. We're just going to do two more. The first one is, what are the core benefits of Malcolm compared to Typeform, and how do they differ? So
with the disclaimer that I'm not, I've used Typeform, and we even have some ex-employees who work at Typeform, but we don't. I don't know Typeform intimately. Typeform is very much obviously just about forms. A lot of what they offer, you can do in Malcolm in our workflow part. We're a lot better value. We're a lot less restrictive. So that's why I think we're better. And we obviously have other things that go around you know, the whole product offering. So we're not just about forms, we're kind of about digitizing your business. So forms are great for process, but we think the other part of it is knowledge, hence we do knowledge. What I think Typeform do really well is I think some of their forms look great. I think they're very sort of minimal, and I think their animation is really nice. So what we do have on our little backlog, which is our pre-AppSumo backlog for the rest of the year, we have got additional workflow styles, including minimal and animated styles.